I was never ever guided to pursue my dream. And then I got a mentor. I believe mentors, they're like the biggest gift in the world.
I know that you grew up in foster homes, and we were hoping you'd share a little bit about kind of what your background is that brought you into dance.
Yeah, so I'm actually going to like really speed through it though. So I grew up in foster care, a bunch of different homes. So when people say where are you from, I just say Central Pennsylvania, because from the age of 3 until I was actually 21, I was in and out of homes left and right. My last foster home I was in though, I was in Camp Hill, Pennsylvania, and I grew up and I went to Cedar Cliff High School there from like freshman to senior and all, some college. But I didn't know what dance was until I was 21. So like this whole like dance scene is, even though I'm 10 years older now, it's still brand new to me. I played basketball and did all that crazy stuff like other teens do. No, seriously, I just I woke up one day and I was like, I don't want to be in school anymore. I don't want to work at sheets. I don't want to. I just need to do something. And then I was at this technical school called ITT Tech, and I was actually on YouTube, and I shouldn't have been. And when I was on YouTube, instead of doing my actual graphic design, I saw a young man dancing, and I was like, there's no way this is real. I was like, there's no way that he's getting paid to do that, or it's a situation where you can make money or a future off of it. And then at the end of the video, I saw something come up that said, book me now. And I'm like, what, is this a real thing? So then I randomly sent him an email, and I was like, hey, I know nothing about dance, but do men dance? And I asked him straight up, because it was just random, and he's like, yeah. So I was the kind of guy that the dancing scene to me was only at the club. Yeah. It was after a couple drinks, and everyone was there. You did it to impress someone at a party, and now I just, woke up, and I was like, Dad, I want to be a dancer. And he's like, get out. So I just was like, what? There was a lot going on at that time. Though. He was tired of me not finishing school, flip-flopping and all that stuff, so then I just moved to New York City. And when I moved to New York City, I trained, and I met my wonderful mentor who graduated from Juilliard. He took me under his wing, came back to Pennsylvania, and I just danced my life away ever since, every day. And then this guy here, Drew, I actually met when, don't let me do it. You're 18 now, so I want to say I met Drew when he was 13, right?
I've been with you for 8 years. 3 of them were before you.
When did you start at E-Dance? Well, how old were you?
How old was I? I think I was 12.
I was close. So we used to actually go, I was a teacher at another studio, and he was there, and he was one of my students or whatever for 3 years. And then that studio and I kind of had a falling out because they wanted to start a new location, and the new location ended up becoming mine. So I went from being a dancer at 21 to owning a studio at 25. Meanwhile, in the middle of all that, I got adopted at 24. I'm sure that's probably a question you're going to ask me as well.
It's on there.
It is.
Yep.
But and now I've been in business for 5 years, so it's been a really crazy story. But like, I can really like ramble on. But if you get specific and want to know like a specific answer about anything.
So the family that adopted you at 24, is that different than the family when you started dancing?
Yes. So when I started dancing, I was with my last foster home, and when we parted ways, it was just like, see you, bye, and it was over. But then I had worked with a company, so my mentor from the guy from Juilliard, he had ran a company in Carlisle, Pennsylvania. And I was like a teacher for him with a bunch of youth and all this stuff at the YMCA. And there was another young man part of it then. His name was Drew too. That is so weird. Holy crap, that's my brother's name. That just clicked. Holy Hannah. Wow. Okay.
How weird is it?
That is so weird. So I gravitated toward this young man. We became friends or whatever, and he actually invited me over to his house one day. And honestly, a lot like this interview, his parents sat me down and they wanted to know what the hell I was doing with my life. And I was like, I'm a dancer. And they're like, okay, cool. Well, we know you're struggling, so if you need help. And they were super nice. Long story short, they ended up like renovating the front of their apartment and or the front of their house into a mini apartment for me because I didn't have anywhere to stay. So I moved in with them, paid them rent, lived with them for 2 beautiful years. And on Christmas, my dad came out of nowhere, who actually at the time I didn't think liked me. I was just like, this guy probably thinks a grown-ass man is in the house with his wife and all these kids and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, cool. So he presents this red folder, and I'm 24 years old, and I open it, and I'm like, these are adoption papers. And I just folded in half and just cried like the biggest baby in the world. And immediately the next day I got the date on my arm. They kept me on the straight and narrow, and they're like, stay focused, you can do this. And they believed in my artistic ability and my ability to coach and mentor, and I'm here today.
That's crazy strange though. To go from never dancing at 21 to you must be freaking awesome to
I think
to be doing this now as a living when you didn't even dance before you were 21.
A lot of people call it talent, but honestly, it's one of those things where it's sink or swim. You know what I mean? It was so scary, so I was just fight or flight mode, and I think I had no other tools. I had no other other ways to go. So I was like, this is it, Elijah. If you don't do this, you're gonna end up like everyone else. And I was just so fear took over everything. And I know people say don't live in fear, but I think my fear fueled me differently. And it was 5, 6, 7, 8 for the rest of your life. And it's literally what happened. So, but yeah, I ended up finding some deep connection or deep passion for it in my heart, and it took over. So now it's more than an investment. It's my lifestyle. I can't wake up without thinking about it. Yeah.
You've called dance your outlet. So what do you think, if you weren't dancing, what would your life have been like?
Oh, God. So let's say before I got adopted. Before I got adopted, I probably would be involved in some heinous material, like drugs and the street life, and probably just making bad decisions because that's all I was surrounded by. You know what I mean? And unfortunately, to even think about that stuff now, as a grown man, I can't even say, yes, that would have been me because I've matured so much from it, you know what I mean? But if you ask me today, I probably, with the support system I've had for the past 5, 7 years, I probably would have had the right mentality to be successful in anything that I tried to put myself to, you know? I was never, ever a firm believer of surround yourself with positive people, and the past 7 years has changed my life. It really is so cliche, but positivity wins all the time. And I don't know. And we got to stay humble 24/7.
Yep.
So
That's the sign.
Dancing in the studio, I know you kind of take your role as a mentor pretty seriously. Can you tell me a little bit about that? How important is that to you?
yeah, so one of the things I preach at the studio is the training aspect of what we do here, but our training goes further than the actual dance move. And just to give you kind of a little bit about what we focus on is I use every obstacle or every bad thing that I've ever been through as a stepping stone for me to move out of the way for the young adults of this place to avoid. So if he's struggling in school, if he needs a job, or if anyone else in his position needs some sort of guidance, I'm just thankful that I've been through it, you know what I mean? So to me, while we're dancing in there, that hour is great and it's fun and it's great for us to let out all of our stress. But I make sure that I go in the hallway and I speak to them and I say, hey, what's going on in your real life? How things going? I saw this post. I saw you were crying, or hey, do you need help with this, or what's going on with that? And I really sit down to try to invest. It's almost like this. It's like a mini interview. Just last night we were here till 11 o'clock at night after one of our classes, which ended at 9, just discussing life and how we have a group of 5 young individuals right now who are 17, 18 years old, and they want to be professionals. And they're losing sight of how much their value is of themselves. And they forget to, take class 100% for themselves. And we had this huge come to Jesus moment last night
Yeah.
about
They're crying.
and how nowadays these kids they live their lives off social media, and they want the 1 million views and they want 1 million followers. And I'm everybody that you stalk that has 1 million followers, they're only worried about one person, and they're worried about themselves. And I'm trying to get them to worry about themselves first. If you worry about yourself and you get all that power, then all that other stuff will come. It's one of the biggest things we do, but it also trickles down. I don't even think about mentoring and coaching. I think it's just natural. For certain people, I don't walk in the office and think, I've got to put my coaching plan together today. Like, it's just life lessons. Things happen, and I'm like, shut up, don't do that again, or wow, that was amazing, you know, like, and then it trickles down to him, and he inspires some other kid, you know, who's 3 years younger, and then same thing in another class. And like, as I walk through here, everybody's a mentor. So like, when people are like, Elijah, you're a great mentor, and I'm like, I didn't try it, you know. It's just, I just believe in being good, you know.
So Drew, you're 18, right? How long have you been dancing?
I have been dancing for about, I could say 16 years now. I've started when I was 3. And probably, honestly, if I never met Elijah at this crazy Field of Screams dance battle at the age of, like, 12. And when it happened, it was like, wow, all right, so there's this break dancer that's about to go into the hip-hop industry. What is that about? And I've heard, like, my break dancer, like, friends tell me, like, oh, no, you shouldn't do that. Like, break dancing is a different style. Like, they're not going to get it, like, and stuff like that. But when I did it, it was the fact of, like, how Elijah thought it was cool and how he came up to me and my mom after the whole battle and happened and was like, yo, like, I really want your son to come and take classes for me. And I was like, yo, I would love to. I told my mom, yo, sign me up as soon as possible, ASAP. And then all of a sudden I started going to this e-dance place that was up in Elizabethtown. Now, we didn't really like to drive because we lived in Lancaster. It was a really long drive back and forth. And it wasn't hard like him, but like I was also adopted like he was, and I also have it tattooed on my arm of when I was taken and when the papers went through, and I'm happy about it. And like after I joined Elijah and like after he made this studio and like I heard about his life and I was like being able to understand like and be able to talk to him about it and him like opening up to me about that stuff, figuring out like how like we grew up wasn't much different. It's just the problem of he was passed down differently by he was not accepted by certain people. And like when I hear that, I'm just like, wow, we're not that different. And I just wonder from like still to this day, I wonder like how much we still have in common. Like how he just said like his brother's name was Drew and stuff like that. Like we just still find things that are the same about each other. And it's crazy because of where this guy got me to where I probably would have been. Like I probably would have been in New York doing battles and being a really good break dancer instead of a really good freestyler or a really good hip hop person. I wouldn't even be an assistant teacher. Like I wouldn't even be able to teach kids. Like I would just be an independent person. And like without Elijah, I wouldn't be able to teach kids what, like bring my own, like he brings his dreams to life by teaching other kids and watching them do it. I want this, you want that, you see these views and you want that many views. Like I wanted that and now I have that. And it's just like an overwhelming overjoy of being able to get in front of these kids with like no like, I don't know like what the word is, like being scared, like going into a confidence. Like I go into it with confidence. Like the first time he made me choreograph was while I was like an hour before class. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is my first time, so I'm gonna do it. All right, so I made this piece and I was like, wow, it was kind of hard to do that by myself for the first time, but then he started doing it to me while I was on my way here. And I'm just like, oh, okay. And I started listening to these songs, and I'm just like, why am I picking songs that I've never heard before? Why can't I just do the ones that I've listened and I've always dreamed of doing choreography to, dreamed of putting that in other kids' bodies and being able to watch them do that. So like the fact that he trusts me to make a choreography in the amount of 20 minutes is just amazing because like I know that you have trust in me, and like I just love it because I know you trust me, and I got you, bro. I do. But like really, without this man, like I would never have got the opportunities. Like I was in the Little Uzi Vert Uber commercial that he just dropped. I am going to be doing the robot commercial with him, and you know when that happened, I went and I signed up for this thing, and I came in here running and with my mom, and me and him were talking, and she told him that I went to this opportunity to be in a robot commercial, and he was like, oh yeah? And she was like, yeah, for Aurora Films. And he was like, oh. And he told me that he went to the same exact thing. And he was like, and I think he told me that he thinks he's going to be choreographing it and doing like that. So I thought that he was already in it and he was already a part of it. Then all of a sudden, the day before I went, he was like, yo, I'm going to scare you. I had no idea what that meant until I went. And then I went and I did what I had to do. And then after, he calls me. And he's like, yo, bro. Like, no, it wasn't right after. It was like a little bit after. And he was like, yo, bro. He called me. And he totally fooled me. He was like, yo, bro, I'm proud that you went to this place with full confidence and that, you know, you like, even though you didn't get it and stuff, you still keep your head up and you still go for these kind of opportunities. So I'm like on the phone with him, putting my head down, like, oh my God, I didn't get it. Like, oh my God, like, all right, you know what? I got to keep my head up. He's telling me this for a reason because he knows this. And then all of a sudden, later that day, I get this email that says that I got backup for that part, and I just freaked out because it was like one of those opportunities where it's like what my coach is doing, who I looked up to is doing with me, and he's the lead. Although that he's the lead, there were 3 parts, and like how much I wanted it, like what you said about drive, like it was just a moment of crazy drive in the moment, and like although I wasn't what they were 100% looking for, like after they were telling me, we don't like your hair. They told me, all right, go home and give me 3 pictures to 2 of different hairstyles, and I want them to be straightened. This hair's curly. It doesn't look good straightened. It is terrible straightened. And so I went home, and we probably took about 200 different pictures of different hairstyles to send them, and we finally sent them 2 out of 800 pictures. Yeah. And they finally texted me back and was like, yo, we want you, the client loves you, like, we want you to be in here. And the part that made me mad is he knew the entire time that I made it. And he was telling me, yo, bro, just keep your head up, like, even though you didn't make it. And I'm like...
I think the thing that makes it, like, come full circle and actually really amazing is I didn't tell him that I was auditioning. Mm-hmm. I told him just that I knew about it, I'm already a part of it or whatever, and like I didn't want to tell him I was auditioning because it was his very first like real audition. So I didn't want him to get scared. Like this is what I live my life in New York City, so I auditioned every day. Like it was like a piece of cake to me, and like I walked into this audition and we started speaking or whatever, and I'm like with my sister at the time, and I was like, oh my God, Amy, I gotta tell Drew later, just so he calms down, because he was freaking out the entire day. So I was just like, all right, I'm gonna do this for him. And then I didn't even know I got lead at that time. I didn't know what was going on. And then I just said to him whatever. And then I had found out right before I called him that I got lead. And then I knew that he got backup. And he called me like the very next day. And like, I don't even think I understood what he said on the phone.
I was freaking out. I was so happy.
I answered the phone and it was a whole bunch of hoopla, and I was like, congratulations. And
it was like, yo, blood, yo, I got the part.
But I think the most, a humbling part for me is if you guys would have known him when he was around the age of 12, or even the viewers out there until about 17, like there wasn't, and I'm just being real, there wasn't a maturity about him. There was a really big confusion on what was the right thing to do, the wrong thing to do, who to be around, what to hang with, how to be appropriate here, how to not do this stuff. And like, I think what happened last year was, college started coming up in the picture, school was ending soon. He had a lot of kids on the team last year that he was graduating with, and just a lot of realness started hitting him in the face. And he came in my office one day, and not to put him on blast, but a couple tears came down that day, and I was just like, look, man, you don't have to stop, you don't have to quit. And he's like, well, I don't know what to do, man. I'm not smart like X, Y, and Z, and I don't have this, and I don't have money, and I don't have that. And I'm like, okay, well, what do you want? And he's like, I want to do this. And I'm like, well, what is this? He's like, I want to dance. I want to work. I want to choreograph. I want to audition. And I was like, okay, well, how bad do you want to do that? And we had a heart-to-heart, and we sat down with his mom, and I was like, look, man, if this is something you're really going to do, then I'm going to make you really responsible for it. And ever since the beginning of this season, he's put in the work, and he's showed up, and he's doing really well. Yeah. Although the world we live in gives you this rule book you still also have your own dream and your own vision to kind of like feed off of and stay focused on, because it just gets distraught with like negativity and, you know, poor lifestyle and like things you're like, it's really hard to get out of darkness, you know, if you don't have that little bit of light saying you can do it.